The topic of today's webinar is how to wrap up your books for financial year end and how to prepare for your audit once you've done that. So covering the topic tonight is Donna Gowron, the lovely Donna Gowron from MoneyMinder. She has oodles of years of experience with all sorts of nonprofits. And so she's truly an expert in this. If when we're done, you have questions, you can review this webinar over and over again. And you can also reach out to office@azpta.org with questions. The next webinar is going to be on how to edit and add users on your account. So if you're curious about that, that's going to be next month. Also, we offer a deal for Arizona PTA, local PTAs, where you get a screening deal on your subscription where you get 2 months for free. So you get 14 months for the price of 12. And if you're brand new to MoneyMinder and you've never had a MoneyMinder account before, you actually get yet another free month because you get the 30-day free trial at the beginning. So yay to your state leaders for creating that relationship. They work hard for you. All right. Donna, go ahead and take it over and wow us with your brilliance.
Okay, let me see if I can dazzle you with MoneyMinder here. Hi, I'm Donna. I'm going to be talking to you about the year-end process that often has people a little bit on edge. So let's see if we can take that edge off. I'm going to share my screen right now. And let me see, here we go. Here, what you should be seeing now are a couple of things. One is a sample group. This is actually our demo, one of our demo accounts. So this is MoneyMinder demo mode. That's why you're seeing that here. And what it is a place where people can go in and have a look at files, have a look at counts, see how things work. So we're going to use it for our presentation today, just to make things easy. So one of the first things that I want to talk to you about is something that you may not know about, and that is over here, this help button. Now, I don't know, if you're like me, then sometimes you don't want to go to the help because sometimes it can be really awkward to get around. But fortunately, MoneyMinder isn't like that. When you click on this help, what it'll do is it'll take you, I'll show you right over here, it takes you to our knowledge base. And this is what it's going to look like. Here's our help center. Now, in this particular case, what I'm going to be talking through with you today is an article that is right out of the help center that is available to you day or night, anytime that you happen to be doing your work. So you can see here that the help center has the ability to search for something. In this case, we happen to be right here. We're going to do the closing your financial year. But if you didn't know where it was and you started typing in close, then you would see closing your financial year and transitioning to the next treasurer, right? So I'm going to click on that. And this is the information we're going to be talking about today. So here we go. Coming straight from the top, procedures for closing your financial year and transitioning to the next treasurer. Now, the first thing on this list is pay all outstanding bills. I'm going to broaden that a little bit. Here we're looking at a sample account, our Rabbit Valley Elementary PTA. Now, you may be in the same situation. I think some treasurers are. So maybe this is April now, but we're looking here at these books, and they're last reconciled in November of 2021. So this particular treasurer is a little bit behind, right? And that happens for a lot of people. Sometimes the year starts out really well and you get roaring, and then something happens, the new year starts, maybe you didn't get caught up. This is a really, really good time to get things caught up. So also because you can't really finish up your books, you can't hand off to the new treasurer until you've done all your work, right? So here we talk about paying all outstanding bills, but really it's doing all the banking. So here in the checking account, if we click on checking, you'll see where we were reconciled through to 11/30, and these are just samples, right? So there isn't a whole lot of transactions. So what has to happen, the first thing that has to happen in this account is that the rest of the transactions have to be entered for the rest of the year. That includes all of the deposits and any withdrawals that happen during that time. Once all of that information is entered, then you're going to move on to the next step. And that's true. In this particular case, there's a checking account and a cash box, right? So if that's true for, you might have a savings account. So you're going to have to reconcile all of your accounts through to the end of your financial year, which in this case is June 30. Now, some people are familiar with the reconciliation process. Some people aren't. It's kind of a lost skill now anymore because online banking is so prevalent. But in a nonprofit situation, and when you're a nonprofit's treasurer, it's something that you have to do. And the reconciliation basically compares what figures you have in MoneyMinder to your bank statements. So this particular one, here's a sample of the reconciliation that happened. You go through, you say, here's what's reconciled, here's what's showing up on my bank statement, and that's the reconciliation process, right? Here's what's showing up on the bank statement, here's what hasn't. And in that way, you are able to balance out and prove that what you have in your MoneyMinder account actually matches what's in the bank. Now, when you're going through this process, and this is a really good time to bring this up, see, this is weird, right? This is reconciled through 11/30/2021. But look here, here's a deposit that hadn't cleared the bank as of 11/30, and it's a donation for $350 that says it was made on 10/1, and it hasn't hit the bank yet. So when you're going through this, whether you're the treasurer, now, sometimes what happens is a transaction gets entered twice. So this might have just been a duplicate. But the red flag that comes up is like, wait a minute, somebody said that this got deposited on October 1st. This account is reconciled through 11/30 and it hadn't shown up in the bank. So what's that about, right? So is that a deposit that's sitting in somebody's glove box? Or in somebody's desk drawer or something? So something to check out. Always, always, always have a look at things that haven't cleared. Deposits, especially. Deposits are like a danger sign, right? Checks, that's not unusual for checks not to clear, especially maybe sometimes for weeks and sometimes maybe for months. And that may be something that you have to deal with when you got a stale dated check. So something that you may have to deal with before the end of the year. But the reconciliation process is what tells you that you have a problem and that you have to have a look at it, right? So it'll either show that everything is cleared, or there might be a few items that make sense that they're not cleared, but they also show you like danger things. Okay, so now here you go. I mean, you started off maybe a little bit, behind the 8 ball, haven't got everything done, but in the meantime, you've gone in, you've caught up those transactions through to the end of your financial year, you've done your reconciliation, and once you've done the reconciliation, then this last reconcile date is going to be 6/30/2021, 2022 coming up, right? So that'll be it through the end of the financial year. Now, once you've done that, there's some reports that you can run. Here, we talk about print final reports for the old year and store them in a binder. A couple of things that I want to mention here. Gosh, binders, when Cindy and I started the business back in 2003, everybody had binders, right? You had the big 3-inch thick binders and all the papers in there. You had a box that the binder went in. So there's still some things that I think you want to keep in paper form, but so much anymore, people are storing things electronically. So you can create documents and you can store them right here in MoneyMinder. Now, in this particular, we don't have any folders set up yet. And in the demo mode, we can't set up a folder, but in your own account, you can set up a new folder and you could call it something like bank statements, or you could call it bank statements 2021-2022. And then you could download your statements from the bank and you could store them all here. And here they are now for whoever comes there. They'll be there for as long as you have your MoneyMinder account, right? So for me, if it were me, I would have one folder that would have my bank statements in it. I would have another folder that had my bank reconciliation reports in it. So you can save those as a PDF and you can store them here as well, right? So there's a lot of things that you can do to make your life a little bit easier within MoneyMinder. So those bank reconciliation reports are something you would print, but then we're going to have a quick look here at the end of year reports. And we've made it really easy to find where those are because they're like at the end, and they're called year-end reports. So one of the things that people like to run, and we advise that you run it, is the audit report. Now, the audit report, by the end of the year, you're going to want to run from 7/1 through the end of your financial year. In this particular case, we've only reconciled through to 11/30/2021. But when times are good, right, when you've got everything caught up through the end of the year, this is going to be through 6/30/2022. So this will have a summary of all the information. It's going to tell you where you started at the beginning of the year, right? How many deposits went in, how many withdrawals there were, if there were any transfers going on, and then it'll show you what your bank statement balances were at the end of the year. Now, these things are really important, these bank statement balances. We're showing 11/30 because that's the reconcile date, right? But these are really important because it means that somebody from outside who doesn't know your organization, who's not a treasurer, who's not an accountant, can look at a bank statement and compare it right here. And those two numbers should match, right? Because those are your bank statement balances. And then what you have is you have your uncleared deposits and your uncleared withdrawals. And again, this is really key. And anybody who is going through and doing an audit or a financial review, or whatever your organization happens to call it, this is a key thing for them to look at because this is, like I said, this is a danger signal, right, if something's going on. So that's the audit report. And again, you're only going to be able to run it through the end of the year when you've reconciled all of your accounts to the end of the year. And that's something I'm going to mention here right now as well. In this particular case, we have a checking account and a cash box, which you may or may not use. A lot of our groups also have a savings account. So maybe you have a checking account and a savings account that you've reconciled through to 6/30/2022. Maybe you don't use a cash box, but you still have that bank account there. Maybe you haven't reconciled it. If you haven't reconciled it, then that audit report won't run. It just won't, because it knows that all of these accounts have to be reconciled through to the same date. So if you get some sort of error or you're trying to run it and it won't, that's the first thing that you look at, right? You come back to your homepage and make sure that all these last reconcile dates are the same and they're all through the end of the year. So that's going to give you your your audit report or your financial review report. The other ones we're going to look at really quickly here. The annual report. Now, this is pretty straightforward. The annual report is just a treasurer's report, but instead of saying treasurer report, it says annual report, and it just automatically runs it for the whole year. So this is a good thing, again, to put in your documents here, either whether it's electronic documents or in your actual box that you're going to hand over to somebody, right? But here's the annual report. This is pretty cool too. I don't know how many of you use the edit feature here, but you can put in pretty much whatever you want. This is the final report. And you can like center things, and you can put a line, and you can put in an image, right? Which is, I don't have one right now, but I could if I wanted to. You could put in your logo, right? So we're going to save that here. And now this is going to say this is your final report. You can also put in a footer here if you care to, other than just this custom footer. So this annual report, again, is just a treasurer's report with a different title on it that is run for the whole year. And it also has your bank statement balances, both for the beginning of the year and also for the end of the year. So the bank account balances, right? Okay. So there's another thing here, final reports. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk to you about, and we're going to touch on this quickly, is the 990 Easy codes. Now, some of you will be in a situation where you have to produce a 990 Easy. Not everybody. At this point in time, you have to produce a 990 Easy and send it into the IRS if your revenues are over $50,000. Now that's revenues. That's not net. That's not what you got to keep, right? That's how much money actually came into your bank account during the year. So if you're in that situation, you're going to have to do a 990 Easy report. Fortunately, MoneyMinder has a way to make that a whole lot easier. So if we go to the tax forms here, and this is a demo account, so it's not going to let us do that. It's not going to let us create the tax form, right? But it will let us look at these 990 Easy line categories. And it's the line categories where you put in the information that creates this 990 Easy Report. If we run this 990 Easy Report right now, you'll see that we have some transactions that haven't been assigned to a line on the 990 Easy Report. And MoneyMinder makes that really clear. It's like you're not going to be able to use these totals because you have missing information, right? So the way that we correct that is we go here and we look at these Edit 990 Easy line categories, and we'll see, okay, look here, here's the places where information is missing. So this is where we fill things out. Now, in the knowledge base, there's a place where we have a little cheat sheet that gives you some ideas about where, we're not tax accountants, right? But it gives you some ideas about what some of these lines should be. And of course, your organization, your head organization will be able to advise you that way as well. Okay, so once you have all of these numbers figured out, once you've entered them all, when you do run your tax forms here with the 990, oh, here's that cheat sheet right there. Isn't that convenient? Okay, there's the cheat sheet. So when you do run that 990 Easy Report, all these red boxes will be gone, and all you'll have is a summary of valid 990 Easy numbers that'll fill all this out. Also, the live account, the production account, what you are running with, will actually fill out that 990, will fill out part of the information on that 990 Easy form. So that's a real bonus as well, makes things a whole lot easier. Now that's only for people that bring in $50,000 a year or more. If you do, if you're under that amount, then you're going to do a simple 990N, which is just a postcard, which all that the IRS requires you do is put in some basic identifying information and pinky swear that you haven't brought in over $50,000, and you're good. And that gets filed online. And we're talking about this a little bit early, right? Because those forms, either way, no matter how much money you brought in, those are due 5.5 months after the end of your financial year. 5.5 months, 4.5 months.
4.5.
Thank you, Cindy. I'm glad you're here. 4.5 months, right? Because it's November 15th. So in a perfect world, or even in a pretty good world, if you're the outgoing treasurer, and I'm just going to share this with you, okay? Because I was an incoming treasurer, and when my treasurer left me, we had a June 30, right, that we ended. She like disappeared. So here I am, an incoming treasurer, never done this before. I have no idea what a 990 is. I don't know how she put her numbers together, and I was responsible for filling out that 990 form and getting it in. And it was a 990 Easy. So it was some hard work. So I'm just saying, if you're an outgoing treasurer, then one of the kindest things that you can do if you're an incoming treasurer is to finish up your work, okay? And your work includes doing the 990, whether it's a simple 990N or a 990 Easy. It is part of your job as the outgoing treasurer to finish up your work for that year, to do these things that we talked about, right? Make sure all the transactions in, make sure you've reconciled. I mean, you're the one who's been there all year, right? So you know what these transactions are. Don't put that on somebody new coming in. You can create the reports then, do the tax forms that you need to, and then you'll have them in a position where they can start the new year. Now, we have another webinar coming up, and that's in a couple of months, Cindy, is that right?
Sorry, I'm right here. I am looking at the list.
I think
How to set up for the new financial year?
How to set up for the new, that's in June,
Yeah.
right?
It's in
Okay.
June. Mhm.
Okay. So by then, you'll have most of this stuff done. So that'll tell you more about how to actually not finish this part because you'll be finished with this year, but take the information from this year and set up your new financial year. So that'll be a really good thing to look at. Now, in the meantime, if you're one of those groups that votes, that does your membership and votes on the new board coming in, if you're doing that like this time of year, some groups do, right? In April and May, they may already know who the incoming board is. Then what can happen is that it can be really helpful to add your incoming treasurer as a user. Now, I can't show you that here exactly, but in your account, when you go in and you go to that button right there that says account, then it'll show you your basic information, but it will also show you more information here. It'll have a section where the users are. And if you added your incoming treasurer as a user, as a reporting user, then she could come in and look at things without your having to worry that somebody's going to change things, right? That because she's not going to be able to have that ability. You've got admin access, you have control over the people that you invite in and what kind of access they have. But that's a really, really nice way to introduce a new treasurer and get her on board, or him, get him or her on board. So that's pretty much the deal. During that process as well, gosh, some of the banks, it's really difficult to get these signer cards, right? Some of the credit unions we've dealt with, they actually require the whole board to show up at the same time, which, gosh, that seems really unreasonable. But you kind of need to take that into account because you don't want a situation where the old board is out and the new board is in, but the new board doesn't have signing authority, because that's just like awkward. So take that into account as well as you're starting to plan your transition. This particular knowledge base article that we have also has a video that talks about some of the things that we have here reviewed. And also, as Cindy mentioned, this is being recorded, so you're going to be able to come back and go through this at your own pace whenever you want to. And I think that is pretty much all that I have to say. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
So Donna, your point about the bank is a good one. We just had a board transition for a group that I'm with just a couple months ago, and the bank required everybody be there. They also required minutes. They looked up the group with the state online to make sure we were still an existing valid group that had renewed our license. They really put us through the paces. So some banks do that, some banks don't.
In some ways, that's a good thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right. But so, Cindy, did they require all of you to be there at the same time?
Yes. Yes.
See that? Awkward.
It was very hard. Yeah. One of the board members happened to be on another board, something entirely different, and they were banking at a different bank, and they'd had their transition happen, and nothing was required there.
Nothing? You just tell us, I'm the new treasurer.
Could have gone in.
Sign here, right?
She said it was 9 day.
You want some checkbooks? Here you go.
Yeah, so you just never know. So call your bank before you start this process to make sure you go with everything that you need, or else it can be painful.
Excellent. Good to be prepared, right?
Yeah.
Good. So Jenny, I don't know if you have any questions or.
I think we both served time on a normal board, so we are familiar with those taking in the minutes, make sure everybody has their driver's license. So familiar with that. I did not know about that 990 that template, that little easy sheet. So that was wonderful to hear.
Good. Hey, so I do want to mention one other thing about the 990, like where you put in your 990 codes, right? It's so helpful if you put in those codes before you roll over to the new year. What MoneyMinder does when you start up a new year, you have the ability to pull over the budget from last year. If you've been an upright treasurer and you've entered all those 990 codes, then they'll pull over with your budget to the next year. So they'll be there waiting for the next treasurer, right? Or for you in the new year. But if what you do is you start up your new year, you copy over your budget, and then you go to do your 990 easy, and then you add in your codes, well, you're adding them in for the old year. They won't pull over, right? So if you're doing this, or if you're helping somebody do this, maybe you're on a council or some other organization where you're helping other groups, then that would mean that one person goes through that and sets it up, and from then on it's carried over. So well worth the effort there.
Great. Thank you, Donna.
You bet. My pleasure.
All right. If anybody has more questions about this, you can go to moneyminder.com/resources. And we have blog posts, we have podcasts, we have videos, we have these knowledge base articles or help center. We have all sorts of information that will get you where you need to go. So feel free to check that out. Otherwise, we will see you next month to talk about how to add or edit users to your account. Thanks for being here today. We appreciate it.